Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the May 9th, 2012 meeting of the Lowell Conservation Commission. Moving on to business, we have our first item is a request for an emergency certification from the Lowell Fire Department pursuant to a violation notice for brush piles issued on March 30th, 2012, the location being 48 Townsend Avenue in the rear temporary temple area. This request comes to us through the LFD, an order dated March 30th of this year. As we know, on this particular project, the current appeal is before the DEP, which normally any further action would be required to go through the DEP for action. But seeing there's a provision of the CMR that allows for the fire department or the police department and manners of public safety to issue a violation and request of the Conservation Commission in emergency order. I believe that's 310 CMR 10, and I don't have it. It's 1004, I think. And that's what they're doing. The order is to remove the brush piles, and I'll read it. The violation is from the Lowell Fire Department pursuant to 527 CMR 10.03 subsection 4, accumulation of waste brush piles to be removed from the property from the rear of 48 Townsend Ave to in temporary temple area, and must be cleared and removed by May 31st, 2012. We, pursuant to this, requested of the DEP whether or not they wanted to retain jurisdiction over this request, and they had indicated to us through Mr. Thomas, Craig Thomas, that no, we could act on this whether they issue the order or not. You know, I'd like to open it up. Is there, first of all, I notice that there's folks here, so I'm assuming is there anyone here from the fire department? No? Okay. Mr. Walsh, are you here for this? Yes, I am. Oh, all right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, all right. Aaron, is there any other information that we need regarding this particular request, or that I may have omitted?
I think you've covered pretty much everything. This is a concern that's been on the fire department's mind ever since this project came to light. The brush piles accumulating has been a brush fire concern, and so you know, they've put this violation order in place on March 30th, as you pointed out, and the question that we ran up against, and I think you also mentioned too, is what the procedural or what the process is to remove the fire hazard in the case there's an appeal to DEP. So this was dictated or communicated to us by DEP as an appropriate process to deal with an emergency response for protection of health and safety. So this, I think it's just about, if there's any other particulars you want to ask me, I can see if I can address that for you.
And if I can correct myself, it's pursuant to 310 CMR 10.06 subsection 5 is the ability of the Conservation Commission to act in a public safety manner, despite the fact that there's a pending matter in front of the DEP regarding the same project and parcel. Any questions from the commission or comments or discussion? Commissioner Lovely, Commissioner Chalupka, Commissioner Varnum? Aaron, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it comes out under it would come out under the either the emergency order of conditions, or would it be a enforcement order?
It's not an enforcement order. It's a separate form that is issued by the Conservation Commission. I have it here, I can provide copies if you like, but it's a separate form that basically states the start date of the emergency certification, and then the deadline. It's typically 30 days that is given.
Now, is there a spot on that form for conditions?
There is, the commission does have the ability to add additional special conditions. Yep.
Commissioner Moore? Commissioner Bedron? All right, this is, I'm assuming this is a public hearing, so I'm going to open it up. First, since this involves the Temple area, and the order went to the CKBM, is there anyone here who would like to talk on behalf? You don't have to. I mean, it's not required, but if you'd like to state anything, and then I'll take some public comment.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Edward J. Walsh, 297 Pawtucket Boulevard, representing the CKM. The conditions we need, we have to go in, I think the only access we have in there right now is through 48 Townsend. And that's the way we'll have to go in to remove whatever debris that has to be removed and the brush that's been cut. So.
And these are the brush piles that were identified during the public hearing process that involved a notice of intent on this particular project over the last couple of months, correct?
Correct, and
Yeah.
that's the, I think some of them were identified on our walkthrough the other day with the DEP. So all that's in back of 48 Townsend. And our only access is in through Townsend right now because of the easement off Old Ferry Road, which we're not involved with right at the present time, is not cleared. So the only access we have in is through 48 Townsend. So we'll have to clear a little more to get in so that we can remove the brush that's in there. And the brush down by the temple, if that could be removed, we'll do that at the same time.
All right, anything else? Any questions of Mr. Walsh?
Mr. Walsh, when you said in order to get in there, what type of equipment would you need to do this job?
Well, I think we need some kind of an excavator of some sort to pick it up with a grapple on it, and need some trucks to haul that out of there. There's quite a bit in there.
Because at the present time, I don't think there's access to the temple area from 48 Townsend with equipment such as you just mentioned.
There's a 15-foot right-of-way through there, a temporary road that goes around the front of the cemetery. So we could go in and move our way, and probably have to move a tree or two so that we could get in to take it out of there. We'd like to do is, without hurting anything and as most efficiently as we possibly can.
The corner of that access around the cemetery that you're talking about, I believe, is a small isolated wetland. I'm not sure even a truck could go by there without filling it in somewhat. Is there no other way to get those bundles? Things are bundled over by the temple area. Could those be carried out, or?
How? I don't know. The only most efficient way is to get some equipment in there, get it cleaned up, and then we'll start from scratch again. We can't rectify what's been done. We're trying to do the best we can to clean it up.
Yeah, I'm just concerned with what further cutting needs to be done in order for you to get in there with, what did you say, a backhoe?
I don't think there's much cutting, Commissioner. I don't think so. I think it's just a little bit, probably a small tree or so, just so if we get 8 or 10 feet, we can get by. That's all we need for, truck's only 8 feet wide.
What about when we were out there for the site visit about a month and a half ago or so, there's the right-of-way that comes in off the Elks parking area. And that seemed to be a fairly stable
We'd have to clear that, though,
Highland Road.
Mr. Chairman.
You could get some small equipment in there. I mean, this isn't, it's, a Bobcat could easily get down in through that access road and bring it out. To me, something with, a Bobcat with a claw on it or something like that. I mean, it's, I mean, the only other thing I can envision is just some really big equipment, and you're gonna have trouble getting that stuff in there. I'm not even sure the ground's stable enough to support vehicles that heavy.
That's fairly stable, and that in behind the Elks, the easement through the Elks, if we can win that way, just a few trees, might have to cut a few trees, small trees, to get in through there on that easement. Because there is an easement that's granted for the temple area,
From the Elk side.
from the Elks
Yeah,
side.
that's what, I was led to
You walk
believe that
that
there
straight.
was access on that side.
They have access through there. We'd have to cut a few trees, though, to get in, not too many.
I think I'd like to see what, the trees marked, to see exactly what you feel you've got to take down in order to get your access.
That's possible. Yes, we can do that.
Commissioner Moore? Commissioner Bedrin? All right, is there anyone, no further questions, Mr. Walsh. Is there anyone here who'd like to offer their comments or concerns?
Good evening. My name is John Hamblett. I live at 495 Varnum Avenue. I'm representing the Pawtucketville Citizens Council. Pawtucketville Citizens Council supports the immediate removal of debris from the floodplain as it constitutes, as identified by Mass DEP, 2 hazards, fill in the floodplain and a fire hazard. However, we are requesting that the Lowell Conservation Commission and/or Mass DEP arrange for the monitoring or supervision of the debris removal by an appropriate authority. Let me just give you some background. To date, we know of at least 3 violation events on this property. This all started on August 3rd, 2011, when a series of wetlands, health, and building code violations resulted in a letter from the building inspector ordering the cessation of the occupation of the property. On September 24th, 2011, while under a stop work order, the applicants were observed by an off-duty Lowell police officer moving fill into the floodplain. The event has been further documented with pictures which have been submitted to the city and the commission. On April 30th, during the Mass DEP site visit, the 2 appealing groups, the 10 Citizens Group and the abutters, were not allowed on the property, but we could observe from the cemetery that substantial work had been done, primarily the cutting and stacking of wood and the bundling of debris. There has been a continuous stop order in effect, and while several reports were made to the city about sounds of wood chippers and saws, no alterations were ever observed or detected. We now know that work must have been taking place during this stop work period. This applicant has a documented history of proceeding without regard to local and state laws and regulations, and therefore we respectfully request that if a stop work order is to be temporarily lifted in order to clear the fire and the fill hazards from the property, that all work be clearly defined. And I'm going to add now, since I understand conditions can be added, that an independent or an appropriate third-party observer or a monitor be present during the work. A written copy of this testimony is being submitted for the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to offer their comments or concerns?
Deb Forgione. I wasn't going to speak until I, heard Ed Walsh, but I just wanted to say this because I know that minutes matter. Because when we were at the site with DEP, she did say when we were leaving the site that she was going to review the minutes, and we did ask her to also view a couple of the conservation meetings that we thought might be relevant to what our appeal was based on. But the two things that she said was, when she walked onto the site, the first one was she didn't call it debris, she called it fill. And the second thing she said, that nothing in that area was de minimis. When it comes to a floodplain, DEP does not consider anything de minimis. When we were at the site, and I think we started to come here back in November, we constantly came here and told everyone we heard cutting, sawing, weeks. I think we came here 7 weeks and we told you, we kept hearing it. We saw it. It's 3/4 of an acre that's been cleared. It was cleared by hand and by machines. So what I'm asking is, they were very capable of clearing by hand and by machines. You don't need trucks. They can take the fill out exactly how it ended up being there, which is by hand and the bundles that they've made. So, as John said, I'm respectfully asking them to just take it out the way that it arrived, which was by hand. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Good evening to Mr. Chairs and Commissions. My name is Sumkhan Kearns. I live on 73 Bellevue Avenue. Tonight I'm speaking on behalf of the community of Khmer Buddhist monk regarding to, again, the ongoing allegation from Mr. Hamlet regarding to issue that is not found to be truth regarding to the filling of the space. There absolutely no filling whatsoever at all, to the best of our knowledge. And there have been a lot of visitation from your commissioner as well as the city official themselves to see whether or not any filling. So plain and simple, it is allegations. And we also have picture to prove that that's not the case either. On April the 30th, when the state Environmental Protection Agency were there, we were advised that neighbors are not allowed to go by our legal counsel due to liability issues, so we just follow the advice. And what has been done there in terms of cleaning up, we have the notice on March 30th, 2012 by the Deputy Chief Phil Lamore to clean up the pile there, and we actually have our volunteer to go in and by hand cut that tree, piece and piece and pile it up. So it's not that we are doing there in violation of your commission or your law, but it is the fire department who issue us to go in and clean up, and we had to do it by the end of this month. So now we are being accused of doing things that we actually have been ordered to do. And a question to you would be, to Mr. Chairman, how are we supposed to follow the order? Are we strictly follow the order of the Lowell Conservation Commission regarding to this, and we should follow this? So you tell us what we need to do so that we can properly do it in a way that it would be, in the eye or in the law, follow your law, or whatever that is that need to be done. So we are happy to work with you and to ask that you support us so that we can get all this debris be cleaned out from. We like to clean the entire property if you give us the permission. But again, we are being told different direction by different department. So we like to have it clear, possibly uncertainty so that we can proceed with what needs to be done. So thank you very much, sir.
All right, don't run away, because I can answer one of your questions you had asked. Sometimes when you're giving an official order by a particular branch of government that has authority to issue the order, they are concerned only with the matter that's within their jurisdiction. In this particular case, the Lowell Fire Department issued an emergency order to remove a fire hazard. That doesn't excuse the property owner, though, from determining whether or not there are any other issues involved. And those particular orders, just because one unit of government issues an order, that still would require and sometimes puts a property owner in a very difficult and exigent in a circumstance where they have to act quickly. And that's why in this particular case, there's also a provision for the Conservation Commission, as are many other government agencies, have authority to issue emergency orders. And the Wetlands Protection Act and the CMR both recognize sometimes emergencies arise. We recently had a fire down on right off of First Street on the boulevard, right along the Merrimack River. Now, certain aspects of the cleanup work can be done just because the fire department, you know, comes in and puts out a fire and whatnot, and the building is, you know, condemned, and, you know, there's all sorts of issues involved. That it still doesn't alleviate the property owner, for instance, from having to file with the other regulatory authorities for permission to do certain work. Now, there's abbreviated processes that are involved because of the emergency nature, but to answer your question, you know, the fire department orders the removal of the brush, then you have to determine, do we need to get permission from anyone else to do the work? And I think the answer to that was pretty clear, because we've been involved in this process right from the beginning. Now the DEP's involved in it, but you know, questions should have come back, you know, and should have been asked of your attorney or, you know, or your engineers and whatnot. Hey, do we need to do anything else? Okay, here that's involved. So yeah, the simple answer is yes. Sometimes just because you get an order from one agency doesn't mean that you know, that you don't have to do further work. So I don't know, you know, this came before us. This is the first time I heard this was last week when it came out on our agenda. So.
And for your information, we have spoken to Mr. Thomas as well. Just, you know,
Yes, no, I know
what needs to be
that. I
done.
know you
Right,
have.
right.
So,
Yeah.
are there any questions? No? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, is this a public hearing under the? I mean, I don't. Do we have to close it? We don't. I know we don't have a DEP number on this. And
No, there
it's
isn't
not
really.
necessary to get one. So.
No, it's
All right.
not necessarily a public hearing as required under the
Right.
Wetlands Protection Act, but as you've done and typically do, there's the opportunity to give
Yeah.
the public the opportunity to speak.
Yeah. Is there anyone else who would like to offer their comments or concerns? All right. All right. Now, you know, I think we can proceed with issuing an emergency order to perform the work, but just as way of discussion, Ms. Forgione, I understand your concern that it should be done by hand, but I'm not as draconian, I suppose, as that. I understand that those piles were placed there by hand, but I think, for one, think that, you know, modern technology could be used that's perhaps minimally invasive to the surrounding areas that could be utilized to get that out. You know, I mean, we've got bobcats now, and they've got all sorts of attachments that can be put on those things. So, you know, that's just the way I feel about it. You know, I think I saw a lot of those piles, or probably saw all of them, and they look nasty. It would be difficult, you know, I mean, when it's cut down, it's, you know, it's cut, it's placed in a pile. It's kind of like a beaver, you know, chews down his tree and chews down his brush, and it's all done by one little animal. But once the dam is up, C4 and dynamite and backhoes are almost ineffective against taking them down. Once it's all woven into a knot and a pile and whatnot, and those, I'm not going to say those things are beaver dams, but some of those piles look pretty immovable, other than with some fairly, strong equipment. I'm not calling you out, I'm just, well, I think that there's always the risk of disturbing something, but the way I feel about it, and I may be alone here, but the way I feel about it is the brush piles need to go, and they need to go quickly. And I think it can be done very minimally invasive, in a minimally invasive manner, through the use of power equipment, but I don't want to see backhoes and big trucks in there either, so. Okay, can you approach the, thanks.
I hope you can bear with me, but we've been coming here for so long, like for 7 weeks, and it's not that we weren't telling you that this was going on. We were hearing the sawing and the buzzing. This could have probably been prevented for it to be as big as it is. The
But this-
piles are so big. And the thing is, in order to go forward, we're in an appeal right now. And to go in there with equipment, and I hear them talking about cutting down trees. No one's gone in there and assessed it, how the machines were gonna get in there, what kinds of machines, which way they're going in, and they're already talking about cutting down trees. I just think that a thought has to go into the plan that's least invasive of disturbing that property any more than it is right now. And the easement that they've been using where the Elks is, that makes the most sense. And if anyone's walked down that area, it is so wide.
Well, that's why I mentioned it, because it was wide. To me, it seemed like you could drive a truck in there very easily.
So they need guidance and someone with authority to go in there and map out the plan. I think sometimes not giving the plan is probably, it would be better off if you gave the plan or had somebody from here giving them the plan, minimizing the amount of machinery in an area that's not going to cut down any more trees. So, thank
Right.
you.
All right. Thank you. Just to put a timeline, just to answer some of your comments, though, as part of our public hearing process on the other project, and I don't want to belabor this, but the piles were ordered to be removed as part of the notice of intent. That when the appeal happens, that stops everything, and it goes in front of the DEP for action as far as that goes. So everything that, as part of our notice of intent that issued here, is kind of out the window right now, and it depends on what the DEP says. Now, in the meantime, the fire department issued an emergency order, and that's all we're here for, is in response to the fire department's emergency order. And it's a very narrow thing now that we're here for. The fire department basically ordered the property owners to get the brush piles out of there. And they didn't specify a means or a manner, and that now falls upon us, and that's what we're trying to do, okay? I was just making the comment to you, you had indicated it should all come out by hand, and I understand that those piles are all put there by hand, but I'm not of the same school. I may be alone up here, but I'm just think that there's an easier way to take it out that's fairly low impact. And that's why I had mentioned the Elks Road, because to me, that seemed to be an upland road. It's paved halfway down, and it's a very short, it's probably only 100 yards at most. That's on off-paved sections, probably not even that far. And it was fairly wide, and to me, you could probably get a 10-wheeler down there with very little difficulty, and a bobcat into the lower regions and into the regions where all the piles were. To me, that seemed like it's a fairly easy thing to do. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of hand labor too, but I certainly don't want to see excavators down in there, and I don't want to see big trucks down in there getting unloaded right down in the resource area. I want to see that all happening up in a staging area or off the resource area site. So That's just the way I feel. I don't know, it's a general discussion amongst the commissioners right now. If someone wants to put a motion on the table too, I mean, and open it up for discussion, I think that's probably a wise idea.
Decisions about risk management trade-offs, and in my opinion, the threat of a fire far exceeds the potential impact of going in there with equipment to remove those brush piles. I've been through a number of projects where you can do that type of activity with low impact, and I think, you know, we can be very careful about how we do it, but I think to get into a process of coming up with plans and reviewing and improving plans could potentially undermine the immediate need of getting rid of a potential fire hazard. So I would concur with you, Mr. Chairman, and I would think that there's certainly a prudent and easy way to remove those piles with equipment with very low impact.
I haven't been to the site, but everyone keeps saying about the Lowell Elks. If we are going to order some conditions tonight, could we maybe say that they do access it through there and there's no more impacts or no clearing allowed, accessing through the Lowell Elks easement?
Yeah, no, I think that's kind of what I want, but well, yeah. Commissioner Barnum.
It seems to me that it should be a two-way approach, that the temple site area could be accessed through the Elks or the drive-in, and the site at the north of the bowling alley parking lot could probably be accessed from 48 Townsend, and therefore there would be no need to cut a wider road between those two areas than already exists. And I'm not sure, but I think people have been talking about a Bobcat. It seems like a Bobcat could access both of those areas without tree cutting, but if there are trees that need to go, I would think it would only take a minute or two to mark those and have somebody from conservation take a look and see if there might be an alternative, should they be trees that maybe are valuable enough that should be saved. Another concern of mine, as far as avoiding large trucks or equipment, would be that I'd like to see no regrading at this point. This was one of the conditions. And even running through there with larger equipment might cause a regrading of the area just from the weight of the equipment. So I'd like to make sure that that doesn't happen, that Bobcats and perhaps the smaller sized trucks and the staging area was mentioned, perhaps have the Bobcat carry the material out rather than the truck come in.
Yeah, just to add a little bit, and it's probably been said, but just to summarize it, you could almost say, you know, approach the piles from the areas of easiest access with no regrading, use of, you know, Bobcat or similar or lighter machinery, but to the extent that you need to be more invasive, then it's got to be pulled out by hand to an area where it can be removed by Bobcat. But you know, this is a situation where I totally agree with Commissioner Varnum. There's, you know, no regrading to build staging roads to get equipment in there. If you can't get equipment in there with the existing grades and the existing topography, then it doesn't go in there. It's got to come out by hand. We've had that. You know, we've had projects upon projects upon projects where they're in a resource area. If you can't get in there with machinery, it's done by hand. I mean, Mr. Walsh, you know, just over off of Tanner Street, the ponding area that was out there that you were here in front of us last year was it was a replication area and a clean out area, and what you couldn't get in there with machinery had to be done by hand. And that was very labor intensive, but I mean, those things happen. And I mean, that's just one project. So, you know, and there's been scores of them over the years that, if it can't be done, it's done by hand. So in that respect, it's Commissioner Varnum, makes a very good point. What I'd like to do right now is I'd like to get a motion on the table so we can discuss the motion and start putting something together on this.
I'd move to issue a permit for emergency work to be done on this site with conditions that any trees that need to be removed for access would be marked and approved by the Lowell Conservation Commission or their representative before any other work occurs. Condition that there be no regrading of the site, either deliberately or by an effect of too large equipment driving through there. And a special condition that no large trucks or equipment be allowed, that the staging areas be set up from both sides, which would remove the necessity of having a large road area cleared to join the two areas. The monitor was mentioned by the neighborhood. I think at this point, we're probably have quite a few monitors as abutters out there. But I would have no problem with having the Conservation Commission representative. How long do you think this work would take, Mr. Welch?
Probably be done at 7 days, something like that, a week.
Mm-hmm.
But if I can make a suggestion on equipment, I think a small excavator with the thumb on it do a lot less damage than a bobcat moving back and forth. And if they just pick it up, squeeze it together, and they can put it into either a roll-off or whatever we can do to get it out of there. But the excavators today are so light, a lot of them are rubber tracks, and they make a lot less damage in the area disturbing the soils.
Mm-hmm.
They could just walk right along the piles and just squeeze it and put it into the containers or trucks or roll-off containers.
That's a very tight area, though. Would they have maneuvering room?
Oh, they can maneuver anywhere. When you watch them work on the river over here with those great big ones, I said, those fellows, they're artists.
Well, once again, I'd be interested in not having equipment in there that's going to damage the soil if it's soft.
Very little damage, yeah.
What do you call it? Piece of equipment?
An excavator, they all have, most of them have a thumb
And they
on
come in different sizes, right?
They come in all sizes, right from
So
about the size of the table right on up.
amend that to be a small excavator, bobcat or a small excavator.
Right.
Just to add to that comment,
Is that the motion?
I hadn't finished saying about the conservation agent, if it's going to take a week to do the work, perhaps either one of us or our conservation agent could go out there on a daily basis, perhaps, to check the progress of the work.
All right, to open it up for discussion and comment, do I have a second? The motion by Commissioner Varnum,
I'll second it.
all right, by Commissioner Lovely. All right,
Open up for discussion.
Yep.
Just with regard to the monitoring, I would think that spot check monitoring, not sitting out there for 7 days, for 8 hours a day, is necessary. I think spot checking, right. Right. And then the second thing is, with regard to the small equipment, I think more important than even size is whether it's tread-mounted versus wheel-mounted. I mean, typically what happens when you have a lot of erosion, a small bobcat with wheels creates a lot more erosion and disturbance to the soil than one on tracks. So I think one way to eliminate it would be to look at having some sort of track-mounted rig out there, a small one versus a wheel-mounted one, and those are certainly readily available.
All right, and
I'll amend my motion to include the comments of Mr. Lovely, if that's proper.
that's fine. Do I have a second on the amendment by Commissioner Lovely?
I'll second.
By Commissioner Chalupa. All right, I'm learning something here. I wasn't aware of that about bobcats. Just by way of discussion, is it feasible, is it advisable, is it possible, instead of having an excavator in there picking everything up and removing it from the site, to have the same excavator in there and feeding it into a chipper, and then the chipper piles get removed? Is that, to me, it seems like moving piles of, and there was a lot of vine stuff. I mean, there could be stuff in there that's quite woven into all of those piles. I mean, would it be at all possible to chip all of that stuff right where it sits and remove the chip piles?
I think, Mr. Chairman, that these excavators today, they have a thumb on them, and they can squeeze it and twist it and so forth, and they can, whatever they have to trim off, they can trim off with saws and put it right into either roll-offs or trucks. Probably if the roll-offs might be a better way to get in and out of there.
Now, what is that, the first one you'd said?
The-
A roll-off?
Yeah, the roll-offs that they use pickup trash, we put the containers in there and load the containers in certain spots that, yeah.
Oh, all right, okay.
We
It's a container, and then the container just gets towed out of there?
We don't want to do any more damage because we have
All
to
right.
reseed it if whatever
All right.
damage we do, it's more work for us to clean up.
All right, any further discussion on the motion as amended? All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. All in favor of the motion as amended? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, the ayes, any opposed? The ayes have it, all right. That's it, folks.
Could I just, for clarity, just have the conditions read through one more time so I have that in the order?
I'll let Commissioner Varnum do the honors on that.
I have the first one, so you don't have to.
All right, well, I've got no tree removal. They must be marked and given prior approval by a member of the Lowell Conservation Commission. No regrading whatsoever of the site. No large trucks or equipment except for bobcats or excavator or roll-off to be brought on site. Track mounted, whichever is least invasive. The staging area is to be placed outside of the resource area, and the slash piles to be moved to those staging areas and then offloaded onto trucks to be removed from site. And then a monitor to monitor the site on a daily basis at times to be convenient to the monitor, either morning, afternoon, or at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Hamlet. Yeah, quickly though.
By roll-off, do you mean one of those huge dumpsters that comes in on an 18-wheeler, and that's an exception?
That's what they're indicating, and that would be in the staging area.
Okay, in
yeah.
the staging area, but
Right.
not on the property.
Right.
And is it feasible to do this with the weather? That area floods with about 1.5 inches of rain. Is it possible to put something in that,
Well,
not wading through
the
the mud?
forecast doesn't look good for the rest of this week, and this is a time-sensitive order, so. All right. Sir, we're done. We had a public comment period. All right. We're all set there. Moving on, we have a request for determination of applicability. This is continued from prior hearings. Liz Atari, care of Centennial Island Apartments. Project location is 576 Lawrence Street, and it's to erect a wooden utility shed. As we know from the prior meeting, we received for lack of a better term, a hand-drawn plan seemed to be a plot plan with a yellow X circled on it with no dimensions or whatnot, indicating that the Centennial Island Apartments wanted to put from what I understand, is a garden shed, which would indicate to me power equipment and gasoline and oil and that type of stuff in very close proximity to the floodway of the Concord River and the resource area. And it sort of informally, we had sent back that we didn't really have enough information for their request. And in your packets and what's been filed is they've moved the X in the circle. Now it's over by the Meadowbrook. To me, I'm without sufficient information to make a determination on this. In my opinion, I think they need to file an NOI. There's no distances given. There's nothing. I mean, to me, they're just as close to another waterway as they were before, and they seem to have more than adequate land mass on their property. Their site is rather large, and they have a lot of area on that site that's away from waterways. They have parking areas and extensive parking areas and whatnot, and it just seems to me that there's just several other places that this shed could be placed, and they've, to me, chosen probably the two worst locations on the site to put it. So that's, and again, I don't have enough information to say we could -3 this or anything, and I think when you don't have enough information and they're requesting we make a determination, so I would be in favor of a notice of intent filing, but it's open it up for discussion.
Could I just ask, Aaron, has anyone from your office worked with this applicant?
Yeah, I can answer that too. Yeah, I think Craig and Aaron have both been out there and have suggested other sites.
Yeah, we walked the site. Craig and Diane Trad and Rachel Kisker had all walked the site to look for, get a better sense of their needs, look for other potential sites that would provide the shed in a way that they need it. This site that you see on the plan is something that they were hoping for. It's outside of the 25-foot buffer. It's still within the 100-foot buffer of the waterway, so it's clearly still close. Our suggestion, or one of our recommendations, was to, if you look at the, I guess you could call it a sketch plan, there's a dumpster location at the, I guess the northern side of the property. We suggested locating it there where there's already it's already paved. There's some curbing to, control, stormwater and that sort of thing, so that it would be less of an impact. My understanding that was not an area that was convenient for them, so what they're showing on the plans, again, the sketch plan that's updated, was their preference, but it's clearly still within the buffer area.
Yeah, and according to the city GIS, it's may even be in floodplain, so it's really close. But the X, now it's a black X and a circle around it.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't do it for me as far as location and where it is. So.
And I don't know if it was indicated in the materials that were provided to you that there's two pictures there that show the site, and then there's the post, the orange post that was in the picture, that shows the limit of the 25-foot area. So they were, it's showing that if you look on the plan, that would be right adjacent to parking space number 20. And so where they've shown the X, it would be beyond that. So it's intended to show that it's out of that riverfront area, but again, it's still 100-foot buffer.
Well, it seems like either we get more information or this is going to be applicable, one or the other.
I think if you're not likely to get more detailed information. If this is an acceptable site, you probably vote your conscience on that one.
Yeah, I guess I should have. From what I understand from the applicant is they want it with the information that they've given us to date. This was their response to our original question back that we needed more information. and suggesting alternate locations, and this is their response back, and they want us to make a determination. And I think what they've given us is wholly inadequate, and as I said, in my opinion, the only thing I could do under the act is say the act applies and they'd have to file. But I don't, if there's any other. Yeah, Commissioner Lowell.
Clarifying question, I mean, it would seem to me if we, based on the information, if we determine that it's applicable, then, you know, you get into the whole next step of notice of intent and avoid, minimize, and mitigate. And I mean, I'm being maybe a little bit premature here, but I think it would be hard for the applicant to demonstrate that they can't avoid impact, you know, in the, you know, buffer zone, you know, given the size of the property. So certainly we could move in that direction, but I think it involves a lot of extra process that the applicant could have avoided if they provided additional detail. I guess that's my summation of it. Certainly we can move in that direction, but it creates a lot of additional transaction costs for the applicant, and I think we're trying to find a way to minimize those transaction costs, but if they're not here to provide additional detail, I would agree with the chairman that there isn't anything else we can really do at this point.
Any other comments, Commissioner Chalupka?
I agree, but in your opinion, if we extended this another 2 weeks, would they be able to supply us with more information, or would they be willing to? Is there a point?
I don't think you're gonna get more detail. What we may get as far as a response is a location that is clearly outside of the buffer area, but that's probably as good as it will get.
In which case, they wouldn't have to file.
Correct.
Right.
So that's certainly an option, and I think a reasonable option. But
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it now is if we say, hey, you have to file, then they either pick another site or they file, if they want to stay where they're kind of indicating where they want to stay. So, you know, it kind of puts the ball back in their court. I mean, they're not putting in any financial hardship. They're not required to file. They just have to find another location, that's all. That's, Commissioner Varnum, any other comments? Commissioner Moore? Commissioner Biedron? Okay. I mean, I can't make the motion, obviously, but I think we're all sort of leaning in the direction that the act applies, so. But if,
I'll move to issue a positive determination.
is that I'm sorry, I didn't hear that by Commissioner Chalupka.
I will make a motion to issue a positive
Okay.
determination.
All right, thank you. And second?
second.
By Commissioner Moore. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Okay. Moving on. We have request for certificate of compliance, Kamlesh Patel, 103 Fotine Drive, concerning DEP project number 2060668, and the project location being 103 Fotine Drive.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Kenneth Laney of Cornerstone Land Consultants representing the applicant this evening. Also with me tonight is the applicant, Kamlesh Patel, and his general contractor, David Martin. We're before you this evening, Mr. Chairman, to request a certificate of compliance to the order of conditions that was issued for 103 Fotine. It consisted of the construction of a two-car garage addition with associated grading, driveway, stone masonry wall, landscaping and planting. We were before you as a discussionary item previously for this discussion, and at that point we had provided the commission some photographs of the work that was completed. I do have that with me this evening, and at this point we're satisfied that the work completed meets the requirements of the order. Vegetation has been stabilized and established, and we are hoping that the order can be, certificate of compliance can be issued this evening so that we can move forward with another notice of intent application for this project. If there are any questions, I'd be glad to answer them at this time.
Yeah, it's a point of procedure. When we received the packets and the electronic filings on these, I had requested because I saw the notice of intent, and I requested information on the COC, and nothing had been uploaded. Do we have an as-built? Do we have a certification? I haven't seen anything that meets the requirements for the COC yet. So I have the notice of intent, the new one, but I haven't seen anything yet with respect to,
There was we have a plan entitled Notice of Intent As-Built Plan, dated September 29th, 2011.
did anyone get that in their packets? Because I know I didn't.
All right.
I do have copies
I
of that
have-
plan,
do you-
Mr. Chairman.
I can also bring in some other copies.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it's, and just as well, we'll see how easy it is. I mean, this may not happen tonight, Ms. Delania,
That's
but
fine, Mr. Chairman.
and it's really at the pleasure of what the commission wants to do and how difficult it is to work through it, simply because we didn't get anything on it.
We came in at that.
The other thing, too, is I know you have a notice of intent on the same project,
That is
but we don't have a DEP, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, but we don't have a DEP file number on that yet, so we can't close the public hearing on
That
that
is
one.
correct.
So that won't be concluded tonight anyway.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
So,
Mr. Chairman, if you've not received that plan, I can provide you that plan, or I can, at the next hearing, submit the updated notice of intent plan showing the existing conditions for that filing. They, in fact, would just require us the removal of the proposed conditions that we're requesting under that NOI this evening. I believe that as a requirement of the 310 CMR, though, in order for us to move forward with the notice of intent, we would have to receive a COC, as I don't believe there can be two open notices on one property at once.
do we have your certification on the COC request?
I believe you do. I had submitted, now again, there could be confusion because I had brought that plan in at that previous hearing, Mr. Chairman, when I was before the commission, requesting whether or not we would need to update or come back in for a new notice of intent. So again, that paperwork might not have been put back into this filing, so I apologize. I can provide you that information if you'd like, Mr. Chairman. It is available, and I can have that ready for you at the next hearing.
Is that in the file? Because if we don't have that in the file, we can't act on it.
Yes, there's the certification with the request for the COC. It should have gone in the package, but it obviously has not been. If you like, I know I can produce those very quickly if you want to move
Yeah.
forward on the COC. Yeah.
Thank you. We'll just take a brief moment here.
Mr. Chairman.
What's that?
Out of the NOI anyway, so. Can we, you've reviewed the materials, can we act on the COC tonight? I mean, I don't know if anyone feels comfortable or has looked at the site. My last time out there has been several months, but I know this work was done quite a while ago, so.
I mean, I was going to defer to others' judgment. I mean, I didn't know the answer to that. Did someone go out there and verify the order of conditions? And, do we have an as-built?
Yeah,
Where,
Commissioner Bedrin has it, I
Okay.
believe. Yeah, we do have one floating
someone's
around.
been out there before to kind of,
Yeah, I think Commissioner Varnum's been out there more recently.
oh, okay.
Mr. Chairman, I think there was actually a review done on the certificate of compliance by Joe, I hope I pronounced his name.
Jenowitz?
Joe
Yeah.
Jawinowitz, or I'm sorry, Jawinowitz. Were you, did you obtain that paperwork as well?
Yeah, I believe we have, let me see what, I know we had some comments.
So, I believe he had reviewed the plan work. There was some question about the extension of the driveway. As you can see on the original plan, the driveway itself came off the edge of the side of the house. There was a requirement to the installation of that doorway, as you can see on the photographs. Maybe you don't have the photographs. If I can approach, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, the plan, photos that I just provided you were directly after construction. The landscaping had been installed along the edge, as it's shown on the plan. The seeding had been completed, but again, at the time of this photograph, it had not germinated. Since then, there has been significant stabilization, and in addition, there has been a number of plantings installed into the front patch on the lower left corner of the photograph page. You can see in front of the Toyota Camry there. That entire area has been wonderfully landscaped with flowers. And ultimately, you know, from the review of the photos and the submission of the plan, we feel as though that we have achieved the required stabilization for the issuance of the COC. Again, reviewing Joe's comments, there was some additional pavement put in, and the retaining wall that was proposed along the very edge of the house, perpendicular to the roadway, was moved back a distance to allow for that doorway entrance on the side of the structure. You can see that in the top left photograph. Ultimately, that is a change from the original plan, but I believe that the inclusion of that shouldn't have it affected the actual construction sense nor any of the concern with the BVW. So we felt as though that with that construction being completed, the siltation fence still, you know, in place at this time, that that work was sufficient for the issuance of a COC. We, again, as you had stated earlier in the review of this, will be before you, hopefully tonight, for the review of an additional NOI for some additional work. So if there was a concern with anything being completed or not completed, I'm sure that we could cover that under the upcoming NOI.
Is there any questions or comments from the commission?
I just got a general question that, I look at the original NOI was filed in August of 2010, and I'm just curious as to, you know, was there any thought as to, you know, why up front, you know, wasn't this like deck done with that original notice of intent when they were proposing the two-car garage? I'm just curious as to why it was done after the fact, because typically you don't like to look at incremental work on the same resource, and I'm just curious as to why that was done.
You know, I'm not entirely sure. I can probably presume it was financial. You know, and there is a, you know, somewhat of a porch on the back of the house now, and I think that their goal was to, you know, they had the opportunity to do it, so, you know, they came back before you. And again, I don't know if you recall, I'm not sure if you were here, we did come back to try and amend the NOI, but I believe there was the consensus of the commission at the time that we file for the COC.
That's right.
And then refile a new NOI to cover the work. Because I wanted to amend the order to save some money, but we came back in under, after the request of the commission was to close out and come back in.
Thanks for refreshing my memory.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Chalupka? Commissioner Varnum?
I was out at the site today and took a look. It appears that the lawn seeding is taking hold. It's up. I was a little concerned about the garden area in that, and I don't recall right now that whether the buffer at the lower edge of it was going to be sufficient to keep that soil from eroding down into the wetland, because that, being a garden, it's going to be loose soil for most of the season. There was a concern also that there's been some soil amendment brought in, a truckload or so, a pickup truck maybe, which was dumped over the wall. And I think we need to be really careful about that. It was fertilizer, but I think dumping it in a pile that close to the wetland is probably not a good idea. It maybe should have been stockpiled someplace else. Other than that, it seemed to be a stable site, except that the landscaping is brand new.
Commissioner Moore? Commissioner Bedrin? All right. Can we release this tonight
I would move to issue a certificate of compliance on this.
by
I
Commissioner?
feel that any small deficiencies can probably be picked up in the next notice.
By Commissioner Varnum. Do I have a second?
I second.
By Commissioner Bedrin? Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Wonderful.
Alright.
Thank you very much.
Moving on, notice of intent. Kamlesh Patel, 103 Fotine Drive. We have a no DEP file number on this yet. It's still pending and awaiting DEP comments. Project location is 103 Fotine Drive, and it's construction of an enclosed porch and open-air porch within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland.
Good evening, Mr.
Mr. Laney, if
Chairman,
you could
members
identify
of the
yourself for the
commission.
record,
Kenneth
please.
Laney, Cornerstone Land Consultants, representing the applicant this evening. We're before you, Mr. Chairman, to add a little bit more onto this existing dwelling. Currently, the existing dwelling had recently, in 2010, had the addition of the two-car garage added on. They would like to upgrade the porches to the front and the rear. A little bit different animal of a project. We're much farther away from the BVW. I believe if you take a look at the plan, the closest point of the either addition is directly to, I believe, flag 5 with a measurement of 70 feet. So ultimately, the proposed porch in the rear will be an enclosed porch. It will be constructed at the existing grade, so there is no anticipation of regrading in that area. The front porch will also be constructed at existing grade with no excavation in that area or change in grade either. Pylons will be used. The front porch will have a roof over it. It meets the front yard setbacks as listed in the Lowell zoning code. And ultimately, we did receive Joe's comments on that as well as to the location and identification of the hay bales, what type we should utilize, knowing that we are going to continue this hearing in lieu of not having the DEP file number. I'd be glad to listen to the comments from the commission, take those under advisement, make any corrections or necessary amendments to the plan, and then hopefully see you within 2 weeks with a DEP issued number and comments.
With respect to the hay bales, I note the old hay bale from the prior project are still out there.
That is correct.
What's going to happen with those? Are they going to be removed? Are they going to just be biodegrade back into the site? What's the plan for that?
Typically, I try to advise my clients not to remove any erosion control until I obtain a certificate of compliance. So now that we've obtained that this evening, if the commission would like, we could remove those. Obviously, the material could stay in biodegrade, but I think it would be best if we did remove them and dispose of them appropriately, and then new hay bales would be brought in the new location shown in the plan just to cover the updated work being done under this new NOI.
Well, see, I note, that you received some comments back from the DPD and regarding putting hay bales at the 92 gradient. I'd like to put them at least on that, where is it, on that western part of what's existing now, and just run them along where they are right now.
So just currently leave them in the same location?
Yeah, pretty much. No, you don't have to go all the way over to the east. Well, actually, that might not be a bad idea, because you're probably going to be staging materials and whatnot in the driveway area. There'll probably be equipment coming in.
I think it would also assist in Louise's concern that she outlined earlier about the garden area. We could actually run those hay bales around the outside of that garden area as well, so that any loose soil that was in that garden area wouldn't be able to migrate into the BVW. That might help if we kept it along that back line.
Yeah.
I mean, we could address two issues with one solution.
Yeah, that's my only comment. Commissioner Lynch, I mean Lovely, Commissioner Chalupka, Commissioner Varnum.
We have a note on the plan here about tree removal.
Yes,
Would you
ma'am.
like to speak about that?
Yes, ma'am. There was, I believe I outlined to the commission at that previous hearing we were at, one of the trees that was, ultimately, it was what we felt as though was in a position where it was unsafe and needed to be taken down. It was one birch tree located in the rear area. It's not in the BVW, but again, we didn't want to suggest to our client to be able to remove trees that were in the buffer zone without letting the commission know about it. At that time, I believe when I came in front of you folks under advisement, you had suggested that we included that work within this order. This notice of intent application, so that that work could be part of a new order issued, and hence the reason for the note that I've placed on the plan, ma'am.
Ken, those trees, they were like green on that, the
Hold-
2010
Commissioner
plan.
Biedron, hold on, we'll get to you.
Oh, I'm
That's-
sorry.
That's all right.
Jumping the gun, huh?
Since this is going to be continued tonight,
Yes,
is
ma'am.
there any way we could get some markers
Flagging?
on the trees in
Yes, ma'am.
question?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
that we could know which ones they were? Because I did notice 2 small dead trees, and one tree that wasn't very healthy, but the others looked pretty good to me.
And again, just, so the commission knows, it was really, we had only identified one tree to remove there. It was leaning in towards the house. They had just spent a, significant amount of money putting that addition up, and there was concern that, there could be some damage. So that was the reason we had brought it up. Ultimately, I can go out.
That tree has not been removed?
No, no, ma'am.
Could you just put a mark,
Yes, ma'am.
tape or something around it so we could take a look
I
at
will
that?
put orange surveying flagging on it, if that's okay.
And that's the only one that's in question then?
Currently, that is the only tree that we're looking to remove. If there were other damaged limbs or something to that effect in the area, hence the reason we had the note there. But ultimately, everything we were going to have removed was going to be reviewed and approved by Craig or yourselves prior to us doing so, and I think that I outlined that in the actual note itself.
Didn't we already say that they could take that out? I thought we did.
I don't know, I was confused. I didn't want to jump the gun and have them removing trees if there was, a concern on the part of the commission.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I thought we said to mark it.
I didn't notice one
and-
leaning towards the house
Yeah,
today, so.
yeah, if you could mark it.
Yeah, we'll mark it. We ultimately can take a look at it, and, I believe it was a white birch, Louise. Did you take a look at that one? Because there,
Quite a few birches out there.
oh, all right, sorry.
All right, Commissioner Moore?
I agree. I thought we had given the okay for the tree removal before, but we'd have to go back
Well, I
and
think
look
I'll
for that.
recall, the way I recall it was that Louisa was going to go out and review the trees. She was going to get back to Craig, and he was going to outline whether we could or couldn't, and I'm not sure if that ever took place.
My only question for you on this is, in terms of the enclosed porch addition at the back, would there be any heavy equipment you need to get back there? or
No, there would
It's
not.
all just hand work?
Hand digging is ultimately what the contractor says he can utilize to.
Okay, just for those
yep,
columns and that's
Exactly.
that's it?
Piers we'd be putting in.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Told you we'd get back to you, Commissioner Biedron.
I was just curious, those trees were green on that 2010 plan, so I didn't know if those were put on there for a reason, and if they just didn't make it.
Let's see what we're doing here. On the 2010 plan, they were green.
Yeah, I didn't know if that meant that was like new plants that you planted back then and something the commission wanted, or if you're just taking down one birch, I think it,
And are you saying the as-built plan?
yeah.
The reason they were highlighted on the as-built plan is because when I came in to see the commission before you were duly appointed, Ms. Biedron, I emphasized those trees so that the commission would know which trees we were talking about for removal, and if we could have that okay to do so. So they were more for visualization purposes than for any other reason.
Gotcha. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yes, ma'am.
Any further questions from the commission? All right, is there anyone here who would like to offer their comments or concerns, either in favor or against this filing? Is there anyone here who would like to offer their comments or concerns? Now, this is not going to be closed out tonight, so there'll be further opportunity to speak, but I think we've gotten through the meat of this filing, and it may just be a procedural matter when it comes back before us at our next hearing date. But and I'll call it one more time. Is there anyone here who would like to offer their comments or concerns? All right, the chair notes that there's no one who is approaching the podium. Do we have any other, I mean, are we seeing any issues on this filing? What I'd like to see, Ms. Delania, is, are we in agreement with respect to the placement of the hay bales? Because what I'd like to do is get a revised plan for the notice of intent showing the hay bale location and where you intend to place them. You know, keeping in mind our comments
Yes.
regarding that, and I think we're good as far as that goes. With no other comments from the board, do I have a motion to continue at the request of the applicant?
I'll offer a motion to continue with the request of the applicant.
Second by Commissioner Lovely, seconded by
Second.
Commissioner Moore. Any further discussion? All in favor? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
And I just want to make, Mr. Patel, are we all getting invited to the housewarming when this all happens, or when you're all done, or? I'm only kidding, but, all right. Moving on. I know I have a page 2. Oh, here it is. Moving on, notice of intent, Roger Hirschhorn, RB Lowell LLC, concerning DEP file number 2060690. Project location is 199-211 Plain Street, and parcel, oh, do I have to read all of this out? Parcel 014731550250.10000, which is the old B&M Railroad location, and it's construction of a new retail building in an area currently paved for parking and expansion of the parking lot at the southern boundary of Meadowbrook Center. Proposed work is partially located in the buffer zone to bordering vegetative wetlands and an inland bank. And I presume that's to Meadowbrook.
Chairman Zachara.
Attorney Eliades, if you could kindly
Commissioners.
identify yourself for the record.
George C. Elides Jr., 133 Market Street, Lowell. And I'm here pinch hitting for Mr. Hirschhorn tonight, who can't make it. I think you met him previously. He's the gentleman who was representing the developers of this parcel at Plain Street, which I think we're all very familiar with. I said at the planning board, we had an informal the other night, and I said that as far as I'm concerned, this is another great piece of news for the city of Lowell. I recall when we did the permitting for the Target building and enterprise when they first started it, what a wonderful thing it would be to bring a national retailer into town. And now we have the Target folks never really wanted to get involved in the whole development of the other rest of it. And now we have some people bringing in some other new and vibrant retailers for the area. So I know that isn't what this board is interested in, and I'm not going to take a lot of your time with reference to that, but I just wanted to reintroduce the project to you. We have the team tonight. Maybe Steve could set up the easel while, if I can introduce Chris Lucas from Lucas Environmental. He's going to give the board a rundown of what's happened to date, what we're hoping to do in the future, and what we're hoping will be completion of a very nice project. And then all three of us will be available for any answers that you might have. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris now and let him at least give you a rundown. Chris Lucas.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Chris Lucas with Lucas Environmental, LLC. I'm the wetland consultant for the project. And do you have a wireless mic? It'd be easier if I come over here and use the boards for the presentation.
Had one somewhere. You can use one of the ones at the desks.
Okay, can everybody hear me? Great. Just going to give a brief overview, kind of an update on the project. It's been a while since we've been in front of you for this. The project's located at between 199 to 211 Plain Street, which is located to the north of the project site. The target's located at the frontage of the parcel. Parcel runs back, it's about 13.8 acres. The Lowell connector is located to the west, as well as River Meadowbrook. And to the southeast of the site, the old railroad bed is located back there where the previous phase was in front of the commission. We do have a DEP file number for the project. It's 206-0690. And there are quite a bit of wetland areas associated with this project. I'll just give a brief summary of those again to refresh the board. Towards the back of the site, there are two wetlands located east of the old railroad bed, Wetland C and Wetland D, which have been previously approved. They're both bordering vegetated wetlands with the associated 100-foot buffer zone. Located towards the west of the site, we have River Meadowbrook with associated bank in the 25-foot riverfront area, as well as bordering vegetated wetland associated with it, which was also previously approved. Also associated with the brook is bordering land subject to flooding. On this particular site, it's approximately 9 feet below the finished grade of the site, so it's outside the work areas of the project. For this project, work will occur within the 100-foot buffer zone only. No work is within the riverfront area, no work's within wetland, no work is within the flood zone. With this project, moving forward, and what we're here in front of you tonight are for two separate areas of work. One is a small retail 4,700 square foot building that's being proposed within previously paved and parked areas. So we're replacing that with this with some little additional landscaping. There'll be no impacts to the resource areas at this location. The other area is along the southern portion of the site, behind and adjacent to Building C. In this area, we're proposing approximately 75 new parking spaces, and we're reconfiguring the parking on the southern portion of the lot. There will be an expansion towards the railroad bed in this area. As part of this, we're also improving the drainage in this area, and I'll just briefly run through that, and then Steve or John can address any questions on the stormwater. Stormwater's back here. So what we're doing with this portion of the work, we're going to be abandoning this drain pipe immediately behind Building C. And we're proposing a new drainage pipe in here with a catch basin with a particle separator, which will convey flows towards a subsurface detention and filtration basin. There'll be another subsurface infiltration basin in the southern portion of the site, which will catch runoff, treat that. Both of these units will direct flows into this catch basin, this manhole, which will then divert towards a catch basin down here, which will eventually discharge to the existing location into the brook. Oops, sorry. And we're also proposing the erosion control plan and demolition plan in your packet. We have appropriate erosion controls. We've proposed hay bales, but we're willing to do the filter mitt as suggested by the comments that came through. And that'll be proposed along all limits where the resources are for this work and for this work. We're reducing the peak rate of runoff for overall for this project, and I believe that's about it. There'll be some landscaping done in here with the reconfiguration of the parking lot, which shows a little better on the color plan. And I think that's about it. I'll open it up to any questions from the board.
Just briefly, can you tell me, where's the demolition happening? I was a little bit confused by that.
I'm Stephen Glowacki with RJO O'Connell and Associates. We're the civil engineers on the project, if I may step forward.
Yep.
previous portions of the site were, drainage was established, was in the process of being established along this service road along the east side of Building C, what is referred to as Building C. Our intent is to utilize the same catch basins, but in fact run the drainage in the opposite direction. And the purpose for that is to capture these areas and treat them as well with, as Chris mentioned, a particle separator and then infiltration basin. That's the demolition I believe Chris was referring to.
All right, there's no current detention areas there now. This infiltration area that you're proposing is new construction.
That's correct.
Oh, yeah, all right, okay, because I mean, typically when we hear demolition, I'm thinking of you tearing down a structure somewhere.
No, I think realistically what it'll be is an abandonment of this pipe system and plug the pipes in place, and then as I mentioned, tie into these catch basins and then bring the drainage to the south.
All right, you guys are doing something that we had asked, and this was a number of years ago when Target built out, and I know you're not associated with them. You're doing something that we had asked them to do. Do you have anything else to add? I'd like to hear about the peak runoffs in your stormwater treatment, other than...
Okay, I think
Yeah.
John may be best equipped, my associate John Stoy.
My name is John Stoy. I'm a civil engineer with R.J. O'Connell and Associates. And the water will be collected in these catch basins, new catch basins with deep sumps and inverted hoods, and directed into a particle separator for further treatment before being discharged into these subsurface detention/retention basins for further treatment, and then it'll discharge, as Steve said, out to the river.
I'll get this button. Can you outline for us what your pre and post discharge rates and improvements are?
Well, yeah, those are in, yeah, well, we've attenuated the flows from the, between the pre and the post. Those are outlined in the stormwater report. Do you have a copy of this?
Yes, we do.
Okay. It's in the stormwater narrative, and it's under section 9.0, and rather 10.0, and it compares peak rates of runoff from the site for the 2, 10, and 100-year storms. And in all cases, the flow has been reduced. I don't see a page number on that, but if you go to section 10.
Yeah. I was just hoping you would put some of that in plain English for us. That's...
Well, as you can see, at point of, well, we had, there were 3 points of analysis here, okay? And, well, I don't,
Yeah, Commissioner, just a second, Commissioner Lovely.
Maybe to help out of it, because I got a question that's somewhat related. Trying to differentiate, is the intention here to basically remove particulates from the water before you convey it to the stream, or is it more to recharge, the underlying groundwater aquifer? Because when I look at your recharge provided, I mean, you got over double the capacity of recharge with your system, You know, if I read the sentence, you know, the two proposed subsurface infiltration detention basins provide a total of 2,592 cubic feet of available recharge volume, which is greater than the 1,270 cubic feet required, which to me would suggest you have, this system's designed more for recharge versus, you know, particulate removal, which is a good thing, you know.
What we did was we sized that to hold the water quality storm.
Right.
Okay? And so when you do that, you know, you compare that against the recharge volume required. And it just so happened the water quality storm was, you know, greater than the recharge volume required. So we can count in both.
Right.
So that's why it's so much better, so much greater, because we have the water quality storm.
So in many cases then, you know, the typical storm, it's more likely that you're gonna be infiltrating and recharging the aquifer versus shunting water to the surface water.
Exactly.
Exactly. Thank you.
Okay, now you've reduced it to simple Chinese. How about English?
As a matter of practice, I think it's always better to recharge rather than to convey water to a, you know, some sort of stormwater collection system. What this system will do is remove the total suspended solids and any sort of, you know, oil, grease-type pollutants. And, you know, so any water that was to make it to the surface water, you know, it would be any water that was conveyed to the stream, Meadowbrook Creek there, it would be clean, it would be in compliance with the discharge
Right, we'll
requirements.
have like 80% TSS removal.
That's correct. But the added benefit, Mr. Chairman, is that in addition, you know, it's always better to recharge the local aquifer rather than to transport the water to some other place for recharge. And so I think there's an added benefit here with this approach.
So by treating the water quality storm, we're also getting recharge.
That's correct.
Because technically, we really didn't have to provide any additional recharge because we have an increase in pervious area on the site.
Does that answer the question?
Oh, yeah, well, I just wanted it in plain English. I understand that we're removing, pursuant to the standards, we're removing sufficient suspended solids with the separators and the, you know, the hooded separators. But what I guess I was trying to understand is the design of this particular system is that you're recharging the ground, the area, as if you had pervious surface there, as opposed to, you know, what we have is parking area is impervious surface, which in a situation like this is more beneficial. And what you're doing is just in the more extraordinary event, you've got excess runoff going into River Meadow Brook. Right. But that's more of an extraordinary event. It's mainly being recharged back into the site, which is what you're supposed to do and is desirable. So, did I misstate that, or?
I don't think we're putting excess discharge into River Meadow Brook.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. You're recharging.
It's going
Right.
into the ground.
Right.
And this is what's required today by
Right.
in the Stormwater Handbook. When you have new pavement, you have to treat it to 80%. So, and the only way you do that is by infiltration.
Right.
So we have the added benefit in this case of getting recharge to the groundwater.
Right. That's what that. I was trying to reduce the engineer and scientist speak to lawyer speak because we're dumb. So.
I wouldn't say that.
No comments from the peanut gallery, Attorney Eliades. So, all right. Are you guys all done? All right. Any, Commissioner Lovely, Commissioner Chalupka, Commissioner Varnum?
I was out at the site today in the rain, and there was quite a lot of water coming off the roofs. Is there any plan to tie those in through drain pipes or something into the drainage, or is it just going to be surface?
No, my understanding is we're not changing the drainage systems associated with the existing roofs. The water will continue to flow down downspouts. The difference is, though, that you'll see as the construction is done, is that the water will now flow across pavement rather than, for instance, dirt or soil in the back, grass in the back. I don't know if you're referring to the areas in the east or...
I was referring to the area to the rear. I think the reason I noticed it was there doesn't seem to be downspouts. It was just coming off like a waterfall off the roofs. In the back, near the side by the railroad tracks.
I do understand that Mr. Hirschhorn is in the process of doing some building renovations. I don't know if those include any exterior, to be honest. I know he was, if I'm not mistaken, he was changing some of the facades and colors and things. I'm not sure if that extended to the roofs, but perhaps the scuppers are clogged up, the existing scuppers that are up there. Typically, you don't see a waterfall effect, from buildings out there. We could certainly talk to Mr. Hirschhorn about that condition.
The other question I had was about the railroad track. Will you be using part of the area that the track is lying on, or just up to the track?
Currently, the proposed pavement is coincidentally stops about where the tracks, where the existing tracks are. Those particular rails and ties will be removed so that we can facilitate the installation of the pavement, but it's approximately that line.
So it will be removed. My concern was that the railroad is kind of acting as a berm or a dam, preventing water from flowing down into those wetlands off of the paved areas. And should you remove the tracks and the ties, if some special care might need to be taken as far as drainage in that area?
That's a very valid point. It just so happens as we've graded this, and you could see it if you look a little closer at the grading plan, but as we graded this, we actually graded so that back edge of pavement is in fact the high spot. So the water will still shed, and that's specifically why we stopped at the rail bed. We're still maintaining that same berm effect so that waters that are on the east side of that rail bed will still continue to flow into the wetlands as they have over soil, and anything on the new pavement will flow now toward the west, toward the building, to be collected in the catch basins we spoke of.
Staging that grading might be important, because I know there's a stockpile of a lot of loose material out there at the moment. So, certainly removing anything that's going to erode before you take out the ties perhaps would be a good idea.
Yeah, what typically would happen on a project, as you well know, of this magnitude, is the erosion control measures will be put into place prior to any construction activities anyway. So, and that would also be in conjunction with the grade, well, certainly in conjunction with the grading. So, I understand your concern, and I think the erosion control measures and the grading itself would be able to mitigate that.
So you have erosion control along the track bed, do you?
We do, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I believe it's on C1, although, John, I don't believe we have it in a colored board, but it should be in your packets. I believe it's C1, C1A, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, I'm sorry.
What sort of, and I know the new building that you're proposing, that's a relatively small, what's that going to be?
It's just slated for general retail at this point. As Attorney Alatis spoke of on Monday, and again, I know it's unrelated, but the planning board, the center is currently under renovation, and several tenants have been brought on board. I don't believe there is a tenant currently slated for that particular retail use, but it is defined as a retail use. I'm not sure the end user, but
How tall is it?
right. Yeah, it's a one-story building.
Okay.
And typically, it's a spec building. At this point, it's a spec building. We don't, as we don't have a specific tenant.
What sort of lighting will be placed facing towards the, I believe that's the west, towards the River Meadow Brook? Yep.
Our intent is to maintain the existing parking lot lighting configuration. I would assume, and the reason I say this again, we don't know the specific user, but there'll be certain lighting associated with the building. For instance, lighting over the small dumpster area, for instance, on the back of the building. There's a small dumpster enclosure that we have provided as part of the retail.
Right. Is there going to be windows facing the River Meadowbrook area?
That I honestly don't know at this point. Again,
I, for one, if there is to be windows facing, that they be curtained from the River Meadowbrook, so any visual, any visual or neon signs, you know, nothing moving, nothing like that. That stretch of the River Meadowbrook is used as a wildlife corridor, and anything, you know, hyper-stimulating is going to, especially at night, is going to be disturbing to the non-human traffic that goes through there. And I understand the security concerns and whatnot, obviously, with areas like this, so you do want to keep it lit. But my preference would be, you know, I don't know what you have plans to put in there, but my preference would be to limit, you know, all of that sort of visual stimulation from the side of the building that faces River Meadowbrook. Perhaps even, well, make it as neutral as possible.
I can say to the issue, as far as that is concerned, that it's currently strictly a retail use that's being contemplated. I can't imagine that there would be a need for windows on the backside for anyone doing a retail use. And Aaron, I would suggest that we can deal with the Department of Planning and Development as far as any of that lighting is concerned. I think that it's fair to say that at this point, everything that's been done there has been done in a professional and non-obtrusive or obnoxious way, and obviously these folks are all sensitive to the issue of what you just said. Certainly is, I can't imagine that we'd even be talking about a client that would deal with a neon sign. It just wouldn't be appropriate or anything like that.
Right.
So
I understand this is a high commercial industrial area, and there's a lot of pavement, not only there, but everywhere. And it's just that corridor that runs, you know, right behind there, the River Meadowbrook. It's, hey, did you see today's Lowell Sun?
no.
Did you see the picture of the moose in it?
Didn't.
About 2.5 miles away from this area. So, you know, and I'm not saying moose are running down the River Meadowbrook, but you don't expect to see that.
Oh, I'm sorry I did, now that you mentioned
Yeah.
it. Pretty skinny, though.
Yeah, well, it was a little one. It was a little one, but
It was,
but
yeah.
nonetheless, I mean, they were looking for bobcat, which they know to be in that particular area, and what did they find but a moose? You know, I mean, it's amazing what has come back into our area because of sensitivities to our environment, and I would like to see that continue. So.
And to the Conservation Commission, of course, I have to put that.
Well, no,
plug in.
I understand, but I'm just, my comment is that the River Meadowbrook is beat up as it can be, is, you know, is the superhighway in that particular area for flora and fauna. So, I'd like to.
And by the way, we have no 10 currently, but if you know of anyone interested, we'd be glad to talk to them about it. So
All right.
we'll put that little ad out while we can.
Commissioner Moore?
So with the, this new building, how much of a change are we seeing in impermeable surface?
Well, this whole area here is right now paved, it's all parking.
Right.
So this will become roof, of course, and then the green area here is going to be new landscaped area. So this amount here, and I don't know how much exactly, but this green spot right around here will all become now landscaped.
Okay, and what happens to the roof runoff?
The roof runoff, right now, I believe it's just going to dump onto the, by downspouts onto the pavement.
And is there, so there's no infiltration in this area at all?
No infiltration here.
Is there room for that?
Well, we don't know, because we don't know exactly, you know, where groundwater is or anything out there yet.
Right.
But, I mean, we're doing, I think, sufficient amount of recharge up in here to, you know, offset any of that.
Oh, right, and I understand. I mean, you're replacing a completely impervious surface. It's just always nice to see more infiltration when we can.
Well,
But that's all I had. Thank you.
Commissioner Vedran?
I think that added landscape in the pervious area, and then also you guys paying attention to recharge rather than discharges, I think it's a good project. Good job.
I have another question.
Yeah, Commissioner Varnum?
I believe there's an order open on this project. Now, and part of that, I remember a big discussion about tree removal, and we were talking about removing invasive species. Now, there's a lot of trees where you're proposing work. What is the extent of tree removal on this?
Tree removal is obviously going to be minimized to only the absolute necessary areas that we are paving and regrading. And again, I'm not sure that you have C1A in front of you, but that the extent of that erosion control line and anything within the project limits will have to do some clearing, of course. But sensitivity to trees, we will certainly be landscaping those areas in compliance with the landscape requirements for the city.
So just from looking at this quickly, it looks basically like everything up to the top of slope of those wet areas would need to be removed to...
I think there's some grading, regrading associated just east of that pavement line, but we've minimized it with 3-to-1 slopes. I didn't think it extended quite to the wetland line, but we certainly established that erosion control line downstream of that. Obviously, erosion control measures being the priority in this particular area at the top of the slope.
I'm sure you probably have a landscaping plan here somewhere, but are there plans to replant something along that edge?
Yeah, yes, I believe they are. We're going to replant, well, certainly the islands, and I believe we are replanting along that eastern edge. I don't have the plan colored in front of me here, but specific landscape plan, but it is in fact in the set and can be reviewed. I believe it's L1A and L1B. I certainly know we're gonna stabilize the areas, obviously, and seed and so forth.
I'm not seeing anything along that railroad side except for grass, hydro-seeded.
Okay, all right, I didn't...
The trees are in the islands, I believe.
I see. Okay, I think that was in compliance with the city's landscape. Are you suggesting perhaps you would like to see some plantings along that top edge beyond just the seed?
There's nothing like tree roots to hold a steep slope such as is along those two wet areas.
Yeah, we can certainly look at that and look at the distribution of landscape materials. No question.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the commission? All right, is there anyone here who would like to offer their comments or concerns regarding this project?
Mr. Chairman, members of the Lowell Conservation Commission, for the record, my name is Mark Goldman, 58 Oakland Street, Lowell, Mass., and I wish to record in favor of this project. And I urge that the Conservation Commission do their standard conditions and maybe whatever other conditions that might be necessary. This is a good project, an excellent project, and I urge unanimous approval. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Goldman. Is there anyone else who would like to offer their comments or concerns regarding this project? Anyone else like to offer their comments or concerns regarding this project? All right. Any further questions No? Okay, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll offer a motion to close the public hearing.
By Commissioner Lovely, seconded by
Second.
Commissioner Bedrin. All in favor? Signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Just hold on a second, I think. Is this at all would putting blueberry bushes in here work, or is that not? We have the prior order that we had with the access road behind. What's going on with that? Are you abandoning that particular project?
No, we're not. In fact, it's under construction right now, and there was a scheduling, I won't say a scheduling issue, but certainly that access road, the service drive extension, was part of a lease agreement, and Mr. Hirschhorn had to get that in place as part of a leasing prior to any of this railroad land deal happening. That order is open, as you mentioned. I did speak with Mr. Thomas about the phasing of that. He had suggested that we come in with this second phase, if you will, of the project, and look to also have an order open on that, and then he would work with us in terms of how to dovetail and close out the previous order, and then eventually close out this order if it is in fact approved.
Well, I guess, no, I understand that you're working it, but is that project going to be completed pursuant to the order, or is this one sort of going to take over? I mean, because you're working in the same area.
It's true. If I may approach, I have a board.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
think I could illustrate. This plan represents the previous order. You may recall back, I believe it was October of 2011. The intent is to complete the work, and the reason we wanted to talk about the dovetail of the two projects is it makes more sense for the look of the project and also the construction of the project to install the pavement, but not the top course of pavement until the second phase is complete, in which you can pave the entire area at once. So we were hoping that at that point in time, again, working with Mr. Thomas, who we had previously been working with his guidance, we were hoping that we can get either a partial closeout of the conditions for the first phase, or perhaps a closing completion of both phases at once.
All right, yeah, I mean, I don't see a problem with that. It's just that typically when you've got overlapping projects like this, I mean, sometimes, we could view this as a superseding order, but it appears that you still want to, and that you may have legal ramifications behind doing that, and you want to complete that as best as you can. Yeah, just keep in touch with the office, and it'd probably be more Aaron right now, or as far as the progress of that project goes. Yeah, I mean,
Certainly.
You have a valid order there. We just, I mean, there's nothing procedurally unusual about it. It's just, you have orders in the same general, location.
Yeah, that was our first question as well to Craig. When I first called him about the project is, how do you foresee this working, the two particular orders?
Right,
Because,
yeah, I mean, you're not changing anything with this one.
no.
With respect to the existing order. In fact, you're enhancing it a little bit. With the recharge in the retention areas, so.
Yeah, and that was our intent, as John and Chris also alluded to with the drainage, the fact that we are now treating this water to the full extent of the stormwater was our intent with the second phase.
Yeah, no, that's fine. All right. Okay, I think we're close there.
Could I ask a question about you have some stockpile materials, rocks and piles of gravel or whatever from the access road project. Is that soon to be removed, or?
My understanding of the current construction that's going on, I believe, as you mentioned, some fill material was taken out of here and stockpiled, I think, in this back corner. It is currently being moved, and believe it or not, one of the areas they're going to use that fill is actually inside one of the buildings, as there was an old fitness club in there, and the intent is to fill the pool. So the material's being moved as quick as possible into these uses, and certainly will be cleared and not left longer than need be.
As you might imagine, it's excuse me, it's difficult to try and get things moving and get the new renovations done quickly without bothering the other tenants and interfering with their business too. So it gets a little tricky at times in terms of that material, but I know Mr. Hirschhorn wants to move as fast as he can, and I would imagine that they'll be dealing with things like that quickly.
I was just hoping that could be removed before you took out the railroad ties and things for erosion concerns.
I
Or cover
think
it.
Steve is saying yes. That's fine.
Yes, we could certainly talk to the owner and also get a feel from the contractor as to what his schedule is for that material.
All right, do I have a motion? Either one way or another.
I can move to issue a standard order of conditions on this project under the wetlands ordinance. With this following special conditions, that trees or shrub material be planted along the top of slope of the wetland areas to the east side of the project, and that a planting plan to that effect be submitted. That excess stockpiled materials from the access road project be removed before the rails and ties and regrading are performed along the eastern side of the project. And I don't know if anyone has anything else to add.
All right, do I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion now on the motion? Any additions?
Could we just make sure the plants are wetland friendly?
Say that again?
The plants that they choose for the planting schedule, just make sure they'll thrive in the buffer zone and wetland areas.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. I don't need to poll. All right, thank you.
I'd like to thank the commission very much for your help, and we all look forward to an additional better project in the whole area there. I think the work around the side and the rear is going to be a vast improvement as well. Thank you again.
All right. No, just a second. Moving on, notice of intent, Paul Mercier, regarding DEP file number 2060691. Project location is 51 and 57 Shirley Avenue, and construction of a single-family home in bordering land subject to flooding, the 1% floodplain. Mr. Mercier, if you could identify yourself for the record, please.
Hi, Paul Mercier. This is in reference to 5157 Shirley Avenue. And what I'm trying to do right now is build a single-family home on a lot that was already approved by this board. I believe it was done in 2005, which expired. I believe you all have a plan of what was submitted, or do I? Yes.
This is a resubmittal of.
Well, the other one expired because I think it's only 4 years, and I guess you could say it's a resubmittal.
All right.
It's a smaller type home.
Yeah, there's one big problem, and that's since that prior project, I guess we had a couple here that we were concerned about. One was, I believe, the Alma Street property. Was that this one, or is this?
I don't know.
Okay, but in the interim between then and now is 310 CMR 10.57 subsection 4 subsection A. And that basically says you can't do this. The flood storage has to have an unrestricted hydrologic connection to your site, and underground storage containers, the underground Cultec containers, are no longer allowed.
My engineer told me about that, and pretty much what I'd like to do is see if I can have it a continuance so I can have a new plan drawn up, because what he talked about was putting it on steel pilings. I believe they're hollow steel pilings where there would be no compensation needed.
Right, okay.
And what I'd like to do is see if I can continue it so that he's drawing that plan as we speak to resubmit it.
Okay. I mean, procedurally, I don't know if you'd want to withdraw this and resubmit. How does that affect the filing fees and stuff like that? I mean, does it?
Well, he'd have to submit new filing fees if he was to withdraw. The other option is to continue it to some point in the future. I would say probably 2 meetings. 1 meeting probably is not enough to get the revised plans submitted and give the commission time to actually review them.
Yeah, and then you need a DEP review, under the, because.
Yeah, we're waiting for their information.
Right,
But
because
again,
that's a completely different project at that point in time. I'm not, I don't, you're going from, there's obviously going to have to be some, even on the pilings. I mean, you're what, 5-6 feet below the floodplain here?
It's in there. It's I don't think it's that far. I think it's 4 point something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the floodplain's what, 100 and. Yeah, I think it's just.
Yeah, it shows 100.
Yeah, and I mean, your grades are.
94 and 95.
Right, so you're.
Yeah.
You're down to 6 feet here, so. So I mean, you've got to look at what you're putting. You've got stairways, leading up to doors and stuff, you've got to be doing some regrading because you've got, you know, a driveway, stuff like that. So you've got to figure out all your cuts and fills.
I believe the engineer said he could have it ready for
Okay.
the next meeting.
All right, so why don't we, it's opened, why don't we, I mean, I don't even want to hear anything because we're not going to be dealing with what's in front of us, so why don't we just continue? But I guess my concern, though, is we're going to be coming back with different plans. Is that a different project, or, you know, I mean, you can make modifications, but you can't file one thing and then proceed on something else. And
Well, I believe what I have here right now, and they're not allowing it.
Right.
When I come back, it'll be even better than what is here now, so there'll be less impact.
All right.
It's not like I'm making it more impact to it.
I don't think there's a problem to continue it. I
All
don't
right,
think there's,
okay.
it's absolutely necessary. I mean, if the commission wishes it to be withdrawn, that's an option.
Yeah,
But I
no,
don't think there's a problem.
Well, I don't want him to lose his filing fee. That's, I mean, that's ridiculous.
I would imagine that the next submittal would be, in essence, a complete new filing because the solution is going to be a very different solution and address all the concerns that you're raising.
Yeah,
There's going to be, so I would I'd recommend that it be continued out at least to 2
yeah, all right.
meetings.
Why don't, all right, then a motion to continue at the request of the applicant
I'll offer a motion to continue.
by
with the-
Commissioner Lovely, seconded by
Second.
Commissioner Moore. Any discussion? All in favor?
This has to be submitted, whatever your new proposal is, submitted to the state as well, so that,
Yes, he said, the engineer said he'd do all that.
All right, and
So did you say 2 meetings?
yeah, I mean, because we've got a lot of comment has to come
That's
back.
fine.
And, yeah, I would say not even the next meeting, probably the first meeting in, where are we, May, June, so,
June.
okay. All right.
I'm going to totally guess at this. I think it's the 13th, but let's see. The 4th is Monday. Yeah, I think it's the 13th is the.
Yeah, I don't know offhand. It's the second Wednesday of June. All right. It's been seconded, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Moving on to other business, the review notification, again, this is a vegetation management plan from B&M or Pan Am Railways. I don't know if you have any comments on that. I don't. These are the usual things. Aaron, do we have any other business?
That's it. The one thing I did want to ask, I think Craig had sent around a step-by-step process how you could sign up for Wi-Fi. Everybody get that? Has it worked out?
The what?
For free Wi-Fi access?
Oh, I'm already on it.
You're using it?
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
using
good.
it right now.
All right. I just wanted to make sure that was working.
It works great.
Clearly, there's a bug with using the box, with uploading some of the application materials. So I apologize for that tonight, and the COC, the documentation not making it to you. That was certainly intended to be uploaded, and I think it was uploaded, but perhaps it was uploaded to a different file. So obviously, glitch, we will continue to hope to refine that. But if you're having trouble getting any materials, if there's materials that seem to be missing for a project, please let us know, and I'll make sure to at least bring hard copies to the meeting.
All right. Any other business from the commission?
Just sort of related to the box thing, it's really nice keeping all the old stuff up there too. There's a while ago, some of the stuff got deleted off, but if we can leave whatever's there as long as possible.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
nice.
I think
You can
Absolutely.
download it too.
Right, but I mean, the folder disappeared from the box account.
Okay. Yeah. Do you know if there's a limit on the amount of data we can keep on there? I don't know. I'll check into that. Well, but that's a
quite a
great
lot, I
point. We
think,
can do
but-
that because you can get it that way. It's a lot easier to get access to. I mean, it's not like you can keep these files.
And how much project progress has been made or has been made in drafting language for the proposed changes to the wetlands bylaw?
There's progress. I think we'll be able to present something, if not the next meeting, the following, the
Okay.
first one in June.
All right,
It's-
thank you.
It's
likely
we'll have something for you. Maybe we'll have a draft for you the next meeting.
Terrific. Without anything else, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
By Commissioner Bedrin, seconded by
second.
Commissioner Lovely. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, the
Aye.
ayes have it. Good night.